Hello, I'm Dr. Kelly Martin Schuh, Amazon bestselling author, founder of Pink Tent, and transformational coach for women. And I am so excited. I have Dr. Christiane Northrup here with Pink Tent, where we help women find hope, healing, and happiness. So, welcome to Pink Tent, Dr. Northrup.
Oh, what a pleasure to be here. I love what you're doing because for years, I even had a drug rep, believe it or not, back in the day, come in to see me, sat down in my office, a wash and shame, a guy, because he'd just been diagnosed with herpes. And I thought,
Oh,
man, it just, that's a good person. And it kind of crosses all boundaries. So when I met you in Colorado, I said, this is good work. We need this work.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Well, you shine so much in your soul and everything that you're doing. And Dr. Christiane Northrup, you are a woman that inspires me from the inside out. You know, you are knowing that you're an Amazon best-selling author. You are the authority on what's right with women's health.
Yeah.
And I devour your work. In fact, it has been inspiring me since I was in college. This work, ladies, women's bodies, women's wisdoms. It came out in the 90s, and my mother, who's a nurse, sent me to college with this book. And
I
it has
love it.
become a Bible for me and for my mother and for my sister. So you've been inspiring us for a very long time. And you've written so many New York Times best-selling books. This one I just picked up and read recently, and I saw you speak, Making Life Easy. So I am thrilled to have you. And I know you have a new book coming out too, which I want to talk about at the end.
Okay, very good.
Yes, yes. So let's start with, as a woman, how do you take personal responsibility for your sexual health when you really know, doctors aren't going to save you, at WebMD's not going to save you? What do you suggest? How do we take back our responsibility and have power again?
Well, first of all, I love that you're asking that. And so here's what every one of us has to do. All right. We are not to blame for what has happened to us with STDs, with herpes, with abnormal pap smears, with gonorrhea, syphilis. We're not to blame. However, once you have the diagnosis, or even before you have a diagnosis, you have to be responsible to your sexual health. There's a scene in the movie with Robert Redford and Meryl Streep out of Africa, and he's about to make love with her. And she wants him to know that she's had an STD. I think that historically speaking, the writer had syphilis.
Okay.
And he, before making love to her, says, "It's okay. I never catch anything." Now, I this moment struck me. It struck me. Now, he later dies in a plane crash, which is tragic, but he certainly never got an STD. And
Right.
they had a wonderful evening of soul connection. So here's what I want to do. First, let's talk about what sexuality is. And because we got to start there.
Yeah.
Sexuality is your creative life force. It's chi, it's prana. In a woman, it's Shakti. And the world runs on it. Let's be clear. The world runs on it, and patriarchy milks it for its own purpose. So think about it. All these business lunches. There was just a big thing in the Guardian newspaper out of the UK where these women, young women, are brought in to be the waitresses at this good old boys charity. And it's been going on, for decades. And only now, in the Me Too era, or the era of Harvey Weinstein, are people starting to talk about the fact that it is this Shakti that the men are using to continue to do what patriarchy has always done. Now, the minute a woman realizes, wait a minute, that's my Shakti, that's my power. So what we have to do then with my Shakti, my power, is have enough self-esteem to contain it. Now, here's where things get tricky. because we as women have been second-class citizens for all of written history. Make no mistake, all of written history. I was at my former husband's 25th Harvard reunion a while back, and one of the women, I asked one of his classmates from Radcliffe, I asked them, is anyone going to send your daughters to women-only schools, like, high schools, colleges? So one woman says, this is one of my moments, when you said the right thing at that time. So
Right.
one woman says, well, I would do that, but I'm afraid, I want my daughter to have the male point of view. I looked at her and I said,
it's
the
everywhere.
male
It's
point
everywhere.
of view is all of written history.
Right.
It's all
exactly.
of written history, so I don't think she could miss it,
Right.
even if she was paid. Okay, so let's be clear. Every one of us, to survive, has had to pay way more attention to men and women in power. In other words, the male energy. We've had to pay more attention to that than to our own worth to survive. I just met a woman who was a little girl after World War II in Paris, and she remembers the Nazis. She remembers the soldiers. She remembers the devastation in France after the war, which went on, by the way, for 20 years after the war. She said she went to England once to visit a friend. They had raisins. She said, oh my God, they had raisins. We didn't have that yet. And she talked about how right after the war, the women who had had sex with the German officers to survive, to put food on their table, to feed their children, had their heads shaved. They were shamed. They were, by their own people.
Yeah.
So let's be very, very clear that what we're all operating in at this time, as we reclaim our Shakti, as we reclaim our worth, is generations of women who did not have a choice. They did the best they could with what they had. And it's only now, and only in the first world, really, of, the UK and Germany and Europe and all that, where women even have a choice about their sexuality. I mean, we know that it still happens in India. If your dowry isn't big enough, or if your mother-in-law wants more money, then out in the country, you're burned. That's bridal burning.
Right.
And, or if a man rapes you, you get stoned to death.
I know. I'm getting chills. It's just,
so
it's horrendous.
This is our legacy. So what you can do now, how's the world going to change? It's going to change by you and me having this conversation. I want you to know, I have never, ever been political. And the reason is I just don't have skill in that area. So I do understand that when you have a Roe v. Wade thing go on, where we finally get the Supreme Court to support a woman's right to choose. And in the day, by the way, I did plenty of abortions. So I've been out there on the leading edge. But what I find is the real revolution is here, and then in the high heart and the low heart. The ability of a woman to say, no, I'm not going to donate Shakti to you unless we have a co-creative partnership. Now, what can sex be? Either with yourself or with another. It is a rising of life force. And if you know how to move it through the microcosmic orbit and all of that, it goes right up the spine in the Kundalini, up to the pineal gland, which is where God comes in. And then you can take the energy down the front of you and store it in the perineum or right below your belly button. And so then you're working with the fire of creation. So way back, my daughter, Kate, was beginning her journey toward financial independence. And one of the things that she did was make love on, I don't know how much money. I mean, I think it was something like $10,000. Yeah, just like $10,000 all over the bed.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm talking about here is real, and making it real, making things real. Your pelvis is money, sex, and power. That's the second chakra. The ovaries are your female balls. It's going after what you want. Now, under patriarchy, women have had to do that in very underhanded ways.
Right.
You know, I mean, think about strip clubs. I mean, not that I have been to any strip clubs, but that's a woman who knows. She knows how she can work a man, and he's perfectly happy to stuff dollar bills into her G-string.
Mm-hmm.
That's power.
That's her. I mean, that's her Shakti. She knows the power of her sexual energy, right?
That's it.
How do we?
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you need to own that.
Yes.
Because if you have a guy who's only going there to get Shakti, you don't want that guy.
No.
That's pathetic.
Yeah.
You don't want that guy. But you have to, a woman has to start. So way back, I did maybe 6 years of teaching at Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts in New York City. And she would have a men's panel and often have men come in and talk to women and answer any question that women had. Now, here's what I found out, which I found thrilling. And I learned this also from Steve Bodansky. He and his wife Vera wrote the Illustrated Guide to Extended Massive Orgasm. And the reason I love the two of them, in addition to their incredible knowledge and their PhDs in human sensuality, is that they were very happily married, and Vera is 20 years older than Steve. Yay. Okay. But, you know, so what Steve taught is that the penis, or in Tantra, the wand of light, is a barometer for a woman's turn on, a woman's Shakti. So when I went out to study with them, okay, so listen to this. This certainly pushed all of my buttons. I'm sitting there with them, fully clothed, and they said, this was part of the training, okay, tell us your sexual history and turn us on. Tell it in such a way that you turn us on. Well, the only way I can turn them on is to turn myself on. And this is the key to what you have asked. How do you turn yourself on? What turns you on? You have to become a student of your own turn on. And in her book, Vagina, Naomi Wolf talks about the fact that girls and women are primarily erotic in our approach to life, so that in, what is the thing called? Anyway, it measures vaginal blood flow. Okay, so it's a vaginal plethysmograph or something. I have not used this, so I don't know, but it measures vaginal blood flow. And here's what we find. Even as young as age 12, 11, 12, a girl's blood flow in the vagina, her sense of turn on, is enhanced by life force. So that might be a tree in bloom, a beautiful flower, a hummingbird. In other words, our female erotic anatomy is a barometer for eros, or life force. Remember, it is eros that in a very perverted form that keeps patriarchy going. Okay. So that's, you know, that's all of the sex trafficking and the prostitutes and the young waitresses for the guys in Britain. It's all of that stuff, living on this unspoken Shakti. But the minute we see, this is mine, I have access to this. When I was studying with the Bodanskis, something happened to me, and I was retraining my body to appreciate life force. And I saw two women walking down the street in front of me. So two women, and I really appreciate Shakti and life force. And they were fabulous, two friends. And as I watched them interact, there was so much Shakti that I suddenly got the lesbian fantasy that men have, because they're watching exponential life force. They're turned on. So a turned on woman is what turns on a man or another woman, life force. And it is our bodies that are the gauges of that. But it is not. Now, here's what we have to do. We have to withdraw our energy from the appropriating gaze of some guy. And now this is where the self-worth thing comes in. Because if you feel bad about yourself and you don't think you're enough, which is basically 99.9% of all women,
right?
Then you're a sitting duck for an energy vampire who's going to come along and love bomb you and tell you things you've always wanted to hear to get you into bed.
Right. How do you protect that? If you are a woman with low self-worth, how do you reintroduce yourself to your sexual energy, especially around a diagnosis like shame, diagnosis like herpes, where there's so much shame that so many women just want to disassociate because they're scared to be in their own bodies, I think.
Well, yeah. And not to mention the fact that look at the Judeo-Christian creation myth. We were catapulted from the Garden of Eden because of the sin of Eve's sexuality. What a setup. Right. So let's say that you're brought up, and even if you didn't go to church, and even if you didn't read the Old Testament, and even if you didn't have any of that, it's in the air, it's in the water.
Right. It is.
So therefore, I was at a friend of mine runs a burlesque troupe in New York City, and it's a very cheeky, really fun. See, burlesque is fun, uplifting Shakti. Strippers, that's sad. But burlesque is the same energy, but fun and uplifted.
Right.
One of her dancers was about to go on and was afraid that she had something. I go into the bathroom, honest, in this little club in New York City with my, cell phone flashlight. Right. And it was clear that she had primary herpes. It was a ulcerated herpes lesion. Her shame was way worse than the disease itself.
Right.
This is what I want people to know. The shame produces an inflammatory chemical called IL-6. Shame of any kind. Shame about your body size, shame about your hair color, shame about your age, shame of all kinds. And it produces an inflammatory chemical that then makes everything worse.
Right.
So if first of all, I want everyone to know here from the this other end of the table where I spent years and years and decades, the number of women who have herpes, the number of men who have herpes is very high. It's very, very high. So what do you want to do? You want to keep, and by the way, herpes, chickenpox, Epstein-Barr, they're all herpes viruses, okay? Every one of them. So is mononucleosis. It's herpes. So is a cold sore. It's herpes.
It's herpes.
It's all herpes.
Herpes. So it's everywhere.
Your job is to take back your power from the herpes.
Yes.
So what you can do, please understand that the breakouts, first of all, herpes burns itself out over time, which is very interesting. And it only comes back when you're under stress. What does under stress mean? You're feeling ashamed. So how do you deal with shame? And the work of Dr. Mario Martinez, who wrote the Mind-Body Code, points out that all tribes wound their members and keep them under control in 3 ways: shame, betrayal, abandonment. So you get herpes. You immediately feel shame. You feel betrayed, perhaps by your lover, who, chances are good, never knew that he or she had it.
Right.
And then 3, you abandon, in this case, yourself. You abandon your sexuality. I am bad. My sexuality is bad. So the first thing you want to do whenever there is shame, you bring in the opposite healing field. The healing field for shame is honor. So now you want to pay attention to all the times that you have done something honorable. That might be cleared the table, made dinner, helped someone across the street, gave money to a charity. Anything you consider honorable, bring it in. Run the honor script through your body repeatedly. Then you could also do the emotional freedom technique, tapping. So we could do a brief tapping on it. And here's how you start on the karate chop point. It would be, even though I have herpes and I'm very ashamed of myself, I love and appreciate myself, even though I have herpes and I am ashamed of my sexuality. I love and appreciate myself. I completely love and appreciate myself. Then you do, this is the point between the eyebrows, and I'm currently working with the tapping solution. So just edge of the eyebrow.
Yeah.
I have herpes. I'm ashamed. Edge of the eyebrow. I have herpes and I am so ashamed. Underneath the eye. I am so ashamed. I hate it to feel this way. Top of the lip. Every time I think about it, I feel bad about myself. Underneath the lip, on the chin, feeling bad. Take a breath. Oh God, I'm a bad person. Okay, collarbone
Did you know this
here.
was on the agenda, Dr. Northrup? I had this on the agenda today. Have you teach us this?
I did not know that. I have no idea. Okay, under the arm where the brow is, and feeling bad about myself and my sexuality.
Where are you there? Because I don't.
Where you are is okay. It's just okay. It's where the bra would be under the arm, right under the arm, about where the bra strap would be. Okay. So you're tapping, and you're feeling the emotion. Oh, one thing we forgot to do on a scale of 1 to 10 before we began. How bad do you feel? Okay. So usually pick a number 1 to 10. Your shame would be like a 9 or a 10. I can't even talk about it. Right. I can't even talk about it. A 3 would be, I've had it. I've talked about it, and I've talked about it to my lover, and we're dealing with it, whatever. But just, okay, so as we tap, let's just see. So we'll continue. Okay, back to the eyebrows.
Okay.
And so I'm feeling ashamed, but side of the eye. But I know that many people have had this, and they seem to be living okay with it underneath the nose. And, I've met people who have herpes underneath the lip, and it hasn't wrecked their life. And I've read, collarbone, I've read that sometimes it burns out and you never get it again under the arm. And so the more I read and the more I think about it, I'm realizing, why should this be the reason, back up to the eyebrows, that I'm putting myself outside of life? There could be another way, side of the eyebrow, but the immunity responds to my thoughts. So the more I love myself, the better my immunity works underneath the eye. And so I'm going to think about underneath the nose. I'm going to think about a different way underneath on the chin, a different way to think about this collarbone, so that my immunity increases, and then the herpes won't come so much underneath the arm. And then finally up the top of the head, take a deep breath. And so I realize I have control over this. I have control over my thoughts and my feelings and how much shame I feel. I'm an honorable person. My sexuality is beautiful, and I reclaim it for me. So that would be one tapping sequence that you could do. Yeah.
Okay. So what I've not gone through that. So you what I'm hearing you do is you start with the negative thoughts that that you have, and you transition.
But you're loving yourself anyway. That's the key. Even though I'm ashamed of myself, even though I feel that my sexuality is wrong or bad, even though, then you do that paradox. I love and accept myself.
Got it.
I love and accept. So what you do, you're bringing your divinity into the darkest place in your life, which tends to be your sexuality and your shame.
Yep.
You're bringing that in. Then your immune system responds to your thoughts. We have a thinking immune system that eavesdrops on our thoughts. And then the better you feel, the better you eat. Now, there's a couple things that you've probably read that I've written about herpes. And one, garlic is an antiviral, oregano is an antiviral, tea tree is an antiviral. There's so many things you can do to boost your immunity. But what you find is, over time, the herpes just goes away.
Right.
And if it ever comes up again, you maybe just dab on a little tea tree. And I know, we hear this, herpes is forever, or one of my favorites, which is glitter is the herpes of craft supplies, which I think is very funny. It's not like you don't need to worry about it. We've even got some data that herpes is a part of the human microbiome. So you want to, in a way, welcome it into your microbiome, but give it its own little room and space. Don't let it take over. And that's the same, by the way, with yeast or anything else. I mean, you can find anything growing in the dark anaerobic atmosphere of the vagina. But if the microbiome is balanced with a low sugar diet, with good probiotics and so on, then it's never going to take over. It just won't. And that's important information for women to realize. And you could go through your entire sexual life up to the age of 100 and never get another outbreak. Yeah. So that's just important. That's like the solid science information. But the much more important information to me is that when you make peace with it, when you bring honor into your sexuality, then you're changing the environment in which the virus either grows or doesn't grow. And the newest information about the microbiome is there's a new company called Ubiome, the letter U, biome, and they are now testing women's vaginal microbes, like from all over the world, and helping with the research to show what the balance looks like. And I know that when the balance is right, you don't get yeast, you don't get bacterial vaginosis, you don't get chlamydia. Even if you have herpes, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right, because your body's balanced.
That's what I want women to know. So now, how else do you reclaim your sexuality? You know, this is important. You learn self-love techniques. You practice with yourself so that you become the owner and operator of your own erotic female anatomy. So first thing you have to do is learn about it. Let me be clear, once again, in patriarchy, we put a man on the moon 25 years before people even knew the true anatomy of the clitoral system. I mean, this is
crazy. It's crazy.
When I did a revision of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, I said to my medical illustrator, who's the illustrator for the New England Journal of Medicine, I said, Scott, go down to the Countway Harvard Library, medical library, and look at the plates of the female erotic anatomy so that you can draw me accurate plates for the update. He goes, it's not there.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding. Now, it might be now. So this was like 5 years ago. We have endless anatomical descriptions of the penis, the testicles, the epididymis, all of that. And so remember that a male erotic erectile tissue is in the penis itself. So it's in the, corpus spongiosum on the backside and so on. So we know with women, we have the same amount of erectile erotic tissue as the penis. It's just that it's all inside. And they haven't, the sort of powers that be haven't wanted women to know about this.
We're so powerful if we get in touch with it, right? It goes back to Shakti.
That's it. So the G-spot, and remember, every spot on your damn anatomy is named after a man. So G-spot is Grafenberg, right? The Bartholin's glands are after some Bartholin. And then there's, the fallopian tubes, Vincent Fallopi, or whatever his name was, some Italian. So it's like we are colonized. So I call the G-spot the sacred spot. You can find it, and every woman, she should do this. You get turned on, however you want to get turned on. And then you take these two fingers and you hook them under your pubic bone when you're squatting, and you will feel a quarter to a nickel size tissue that is engorged just deep to the urethra. You'll feel it right there at 12 o'clock. So fingers hooked under the pubic bone, and then you can feel that when you stimulate it, there is what's called a nadi, a acupuncture meridian that goes right up to the pineal gland. And then DMT, which is one of the prime hallucinogens of all times, is produced by the pineal gland. And that's why sex is so pervasive, so addictive, because when you are in touch with your deepest sexuality, you're in touch with your deepest spirituality. So what women need to do is, if I can get up on the podium, the lectern for a moment, I would like to say to women, stop it with the hookup culture. Just stop it. You are betraying your deepest self every time you hook up with some guy with no meaning, just plain stop it. It took me a long time to just say that because, oh God, well, you're not being very cool.
Oh, I think you're being really cool.
Yeah, well,
right?
I am. No, at this point,
time.
I know what I know. And this is the dumbest con patriarchy has ever perpetrated. So now it's okay to have sex, right? So we got over the 50s and 60s and we had the sexual revolution of the birth control pill. And I was on the front lines of that. And I saw a lot of women just getting screwed. Free love. There's no such thing. What men did is they just exploited the bejesus out of that, and women got exploited. It is not how most women, most of the time, are wired. It's the same, I'm going to do this now, with polyamorous communities. Generally, here's what I've seen. It is a man who wants to have 3, 4, 5 lovers so that he never has to do a deep dive of commitment where you're really co-creating with God. No. Let's just keep it superficial. But if she wants to do the same thing, oh no, that's not okay.
Shaming, right? It goes back to shaming.
I've seen that too many times.
Yeah.
If you are genuinely polyamorous and that works for you, knock yourself out. I've never seen it. Because it's hard enough, right? To love one person.
Right.
To commit to how far you can go with one person. Yeah. It's hard enough.
It is.
So you're going to spread that out for 4 or 5? There's a male sexuality teacher who had this to say, and I can't remember his name. He said, polyamory is for cowards. But again, if that's your thing and it's working for you, it is far be it from me to tell you what to do. I don't do the guru trip. You get to decide.
Yeah.
But so a self-love practice, maybe using a jade egg or one of those yoni eggs to exercise your pelvic floor muscles. It's very, very effective.
Right.
And Kim Anami does a great job. She's got a jade egg practice that you can download that and get a jade egg from her. There's all kinds of resources now. It's an ancient technique made popular by really popular. I've been writing about it forever, but when Gwyneth Paltrow puts it on Goop, then everyone knows about it. And then every gynecologist just writes, don't put rocks in your vagina. I agree. I don't think you should put rocks in your vagina either. But,
maybe that's where the practice started, right?
Yeah, this is an ancient practice that the concubines used to do in ancient China. I was going to say,
who taught the women? It must have come from the women because it's not going to come from the man.
No. So when you know how to own and operate your female pelvic anatomy, you are a goddess. And then you're not doing it to please a guy ever. But every woman needs to know what turns her on. The Badanskis have a wonderful practice that I did and mastered. And here's what it was. It was, you do this thing, it's called visiting dignitary. So you create your bedroom or your space as though someone that you really cared about would be okay. Maybe, Queen Elizabeth, President Obama, somebody, but a space where you're prepared for a visiting dignitary.
Okay.
That would be you. And then you come into that space and you begin to appreciate yourself and your body, maybe by candlelight. So that if you're really down on your body, you just begin to look at what areas of yourself you can love. It might be your eyes. It might be your eyebrows. Candlelight, just give yourself the time that you would always give a lover. No problem. Right?
Right.
Just give that to yourself. And then you'll find that self-love will begin to change the way your skin looks. It'll start to change everything. Then gradually begin a process of stroking yourself and then see if you can reach orgasm just through some gentle clitoral stimulation, and just get to the point where you can easily do that in 30 minutes. You're going to learn a ton about your female erotic anatomy. And by the way, I just have to throw this in. I am not a fan of vibrators, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
That is a very powerful stimulation. And it's the same RPM. Okay, you can turn it up or down, but it's a lot of stimulation, a lot.
Right.
So what happens is women train themselves to only be able to have an orgasm with a vibrator, when in fact, you can train yourself to have an orgasm with someone stimulating your earlobe. So you want your body to become far more sensitive to our erotic flow with far less stimulation. Because remember, 12-year-old girls are already having increased vaginal blood flow from looking at something that elicits life force.
Okay.
So why should we need, a Black & Decker kind of power tool when it is our birthright to feel more with less? Now, again, you don't have to listen to me on this one, but try it out, because you can train yourself.
Yeah, and train your body and train your thoughts. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
One practice that you said in an Oprah interview that I loved is how you start your day. You look in the mirror. Can you share with the audience what you tell yourself in the mirror in the mornings? I
can. And this is funny. My computer is, let me just plug this in.
Okay.
I will be right back. Okay. In the meantime, here's the practice. You can start while I plug this in. Okay. And you just look in the mirror. Yeah. And look into your eyes. And I got this from Louise Hay. It is the Louise Hay practice of all time. And you say, I love you. I really love you. And you do it, start in, and by the end of probably 20 days, you're going to see who you are looking back at you without the shame, without any of that. So hang on one second here.
All righty.
All right.
I love your comments, ladies. Keep them coming. Hello, big shout out. We've got Luna and Terry and Michelle and Grace and Brett. So thank you for joining us.
Great.
All right. So that singular practice, because I've had so many people tell me, they'll say, well, I've tried affirmations and they don't work. And I always ask, how long did you try it? Because it's okay if you don't feel the feelings. In fact, I wouldn't expect it in the beginning. If you need to practice self-love, it's truly a practice.
Well, here's the thing that I want to, and I learned this from spiritual teacher Matt Kahn, who's really fun. So he said, here's the part we haven't figured out. And it's the added piece. So you say, I love you in the mirror. And then the committee in your head goes, are you kidding me? You weigh 150 pounds. You've just been diagnosed with herpes. You're a total loser. Okay, here's what you do. At that point, when that's the shadow. So the shadow has come up and you've got to respect the shadow. So what you say is, oh my God, self-loathing and shame. Yeah. I am nailing it. I have got those things down. Nobody has done shame or self-loathing or body hatred better than me. Congratulations.
You own it.
When you give it space, when you've got to give the shadow space. The only reason it's the shadow is we're so ashamed of it, we keep it in the dark. You want to bring in more love. What does every good comedian do? They take something that everyone is ashamed of or that they are ashamed of, and then they lighten it up through comedy, and then laughter and comedy create the elasticity in the brain of a 5-year-old. And so therefore, you can never go back into the shame as deeply as you did the first time. So if you want to bring more love into your life, you tell one person something you've never told anybody because you're so ashamed. And they say, and this is the practice, and then they say to you, I love you right there. I love you right there. So I had I was in a workshop once, and this was the exercise. And one of the women in the workshop said that she watched a lot of porn, but always in secret, and she never told anyone. And so she told it to everybody, and everyone looked right at her and said, I love you right there. So like your
Mm.
deepest, darkest secret, everyone's still loving you. She told me later, I've never watched it again. Never watched it again. Never needed to.
Wow.
Yeah, because
That speaks to in one of your books I was reading about the shame is the first step is the acknowledgement,
yes,
right? The witness. And
you
what you're
need a
explaining
witness.
there is the value of the witness.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because okay, I remember the day way back when nobody talked about breast cancer. Like nobody. This
Yeah.
was sort of before everyone got really empowered. And, you know, when they got empowered with AIDS, I mean, Louise Hay started her whole career with the hay rides in the 80s when all these gorgeous young men were dying of AIDS and they'd go back to their homes and be kicked out, just
Mm.
be kicked out. So Louise started in West Hollywood these amazing things. She'd rent a gym, she'd bring in massage people, and just this, you
Oh.
know, no money, no social media, um, so that she could have them do mirror work and just love themselves and find love. Now, think of how far we've come. That was the 80s.
Yeah.
So this isn't really that long ago in terms of, okay, I always like to think about glacial time, you know, in
Right.
geologic time, women got the right to vote in 1920. So that isn't even 100 years yet, but it's coming up on it. So
Yeah.
we are moving for the human race at lightning speed. So it
Yeah.
used to be, if you've watched the recent episodes of Will and Grace, you know, 15 years later, they are hilarious because what they're showing in these episodes is Jack and Will going to gay bars, and then the 19, 20-year-old gay men had coming out parties when they were 11. And so here's
I saw
Will.
an episode exactly, and they were like making fun. Yes,
It was so funny.
absolutely.
And the young kid goes, I know about Stonehenge. It's like, what? That was
Right. Right.
Stonewall. You know,
Right.
we're moving here. I really want to say this. We are moving at lightning speed. You got my book from your mother when you went to college.
Yes.
I, on the other hand, didn't think my work would be accepted in my lifetime, let
Mm.
alone that I would now have two generations of women who have had the foundation with which to wake up and own and operate their bodies. That to me
Thank
is a
you. Thank
miracle.
you. Thank you. Yes. We
You're
have
welcome.
yes. Dr. Northrup, you rock because you were foundational
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in making that available. I mean, you listened to your guidance and put it out there when it wasn't comfortable.
Oh, it certainly was not. The stories I could tell you.
I
But, you
bet.
know, it was one of those where I knew I had to do it. I had a feeling that, okay, I shirked this for about, you know, 8 or 9 lifetimes
Yeah.
of hiding. It just, okay, I'm going to do it. And I woke up on the week that the first edition came out in 1994. I
Mm.
woke up every night thinking there was someone in the house with a gun who was going to kill me. Yeah, I
Oh,
went through that wall of terror that
yeah.
I think everyone who does anything significant has to go through. Not, it wasn't my terror, it was, but it's the morphogenic field, the
Right.
presence of the past, as
Right.
Rupert Sheldrake. So therefore, I want to be clear on this. Every woman who, so let's say that you've gone on a dating site, I don't know what you're on, you know, Tinder or Grindr or whatever you're on, and then you honestly and steadfastly stand up and you are loving yourself. And even though I've been diagnosed with herpes, I love and accept myself right now. And finally, it becomes a reality. And you have someone say, I love you right there. And then maybe on the first or second date, before you have sex, you say, look, I've had this diagnosis. I haven't had a breakout for 2 to 3 years, but I also know that there is a chance that I am an asymptomatic shedder and that the
Right.
virus could be shed. So I want you to know that. Now that's integrity. And your
Yes.
immune system responds to integrity. Then the person can say, oh, I really care about you and I can overcome that. Let's use condoms till we get to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might say, I'm so glad you brought that up. I've had it too. Let's see where where this goes,
Right.
you see. Then you're beginning the relationship where it should always begin, which is, I once read something I loved about using condoms, and it's before he gets it up, bring it up. I mean, so it's so
I
much.
love it. All right. That's tweetable.
Okay. Yep. And so we've got to really have those difficult conversations where you begin to realize that your vulnerability is your biggest strength. It's your biggest asset. And if a person cannot accept you in your total humanity and your total vulnerability, you can't afford to have them in your life. You cannot.
I just got chills again.
Yeah.
So true. Comes back to self-love.
Yeah.
Now, I love me enough, to be able to receive your love or not, but I'm not broken. I am whole, and
by the
am
way,
doing the right thing. And yeah,
that's true. By the way, the body feels that. For instance, when I've told people it's better if you can avoid a hysterectomy, but if you've had a hysterectomy and you've had your uterus out, your body still registers that organ in the auric field. So it's important
like a phantom uterus.
Yeah, like really true. You're not broken. And I think what we all need to understand is we're often looking for love in all the wrong places.
Right.
The only place we can get it is our connection with the divine. So what you want to do before you go on a date, before you have a sexual encounter, whatever, fill yourself up with your own divine energy. Now, how do you do that? In every medieval painting, whether it's the saints or the Buddha, in any of the traditions of painting, the realized beings always have a halo around their head, because that's real. That's real. The visionary painter Alex Gray actually sees that.
I think he's from Boulder, from my hometown.
I think he is. Think he is. It makes sense. So many are from Boulder.
Anyway,
so what you do is you imagine that eighth chakra golden aura is above your head. So I just learned this from Alberto Villoldo down in Chile at a Grow a New Body seminar. So you take your hands in front of you, then you move them up over your head, and then put the palms this way so that you're around this way. Yep, go up and around.
Okay.
So up and around, and you're bringing that light down into your body. You're bringing that down into your body, all the way to your toes, bringing that golden orb. That's your light. That's your soul. That's your aura. That's your power. And I've found even left brain male engineers can feel that.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel clearer right now.
Yeah. Because you're acknowledging, this is how I need to be filled.
Yeah.
I take care of this first.
Yes.
And then if I'm full, I don't have to go out with my aura and try to blanket another to prove to them that I'm lovable.
Yeah. So it almost creates an energetic bubble.
It does. That's exactly what it creates.
Right? That's what it feels like. And I've shared with people before of having that bubble and have it have like a disco ball, like filling yourself with your own energy and your energy of the divine. And then create the disco ball where anything that's beautiful and filled with love and things that are good for you can come right in, and anything that is not serving for your highest good is reflected. And
that's it. So you just put mirrors around the aura so that projections are sent back to them.
Absolutely.
Where that's the old "what you think of me is none of my business" kind of thing.
I love that.
Yeah. But if you're an empath, you're going to know what they're thinking of you, and it's going to feel horrible. And that's why you really got to bring in the divine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you bringing up the empath, I love the new book that you have coming out.
Yes.
And speaking to, that empath and the vulnerability. And even you alluded to it. I think you're maybe planting a seed when you wrote Making Life Easy, because I picked up on that. And I think that's where it was. We were saying, doctors and lawyers and very bright women find themselves in really challenging, unhealthy relationships. So do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I do. Well, first of all, here's the book. this will be backward, obviously, for everyone, but it's called
I
Dodging
see it. It looks
Energy.
right to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Dodging Energy Vampires, an empath's guide to evading relationships that drain you and restoring your health and power. And it's available for pre-order. And if you happen to pre-order it, I just happen to have some bonuses available for a short period of time, so that's worthwhile. But what this book is really about is the kind of person, generally a woman, but not always,
Okay.
who is most likely to be targeted by an energy vampire. And this is the research of Dr. Sandra Brown, who found that there's a subgroup of women, subgroup of empaths who have what she calls super traits of loyalty, self-directedness, feeling like they really can't be harmed, very, very efficient, very good at what they do. So we're talking federal judges, doctors, lawyers, CEOs, women who run their own businesses, and they function beautifully in every single area of life except intimate relationships, because they tend to be targeted by energy vampires, and then they hook them with a sob story. And the woman with the super trait says, oh, I can heal you. I can fix you. Why? Because in every other area of her life, she can, but not with them. They are not fixable. And what happens is women will stay 25, 30 years feeling like they can polish a turd. They can't. And so part of what this book is about is how to recognize it and get out of there, because they won't change. Right. And I did a lot of research. I worked with George Simon, who spent his whole adult career on manipulative people, character disordered, Sandra Brown, who wrote Women Who Love Psychopaths. And then, of course, my own autobiographical part of this. And many empaths, many people into healing are going to be targeted by energy vampires who tend to work within so-called new age structures. They're gurus, they're yoga teachers, they're people who speak your language to get you into bed or to get your money or whatever it is. And you've been waiting your whole life to hear someone who seems like an authority figure say the words that will validate you. Oh, he gets me. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he gets you all right. He's going to suck you dry. He's going to suck you dry. I know people who've given all their life savings to gurus. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So anyway, that's why I wrote it. I think it is probably my most important book, and it's little. It's very short. You can read it fast.
Well, you amaze me. You are such a prolific writer. It's amazing.
Well, it's if I
every single thing I've read that you've written, like, it just speaks to me. It really speaks to me. So I am very fortunate that I actually am in a very healthy and helpful or healthy. What am I trying to say? An amazing relationship with my husband, and yet I have even fallen victim in the past, which I consider myself a pretty balanced and strong woman, with a guy that was incredibly manipulative. And he had me thinking things like, I felt more distance from my family. I felt, like I forgot who I was. And I look back at that time in my life, and all I can say is he was a great teacher for me.
Yeah, right? They're great teachers. They're, I think, in the era of Harvey Weinstein and the fact that there are women who still judge women, like, why did she do that? Why does she stay? You have had to have had an experience with a truly charismatic, skillful, manipulative energy vampire, and you will understand why she stayed, why she didn't say anything. I have a good friend who is a clinical psychologist. He's worked solely with men who've been abused by priests. And he said, after 25 years in this field, 30 years, I can be taken in by a really good looking, really charming psychopath. It's important to realize, okay, for us energy, for the empaths, it's not surprising that we get taken in because we are that sensitive and they know it and they use it against us. But even any everyday person, because here's what we all believe, especially people like you and I who are healers. We believe that in their heart, everyone is a good person, but they've been wounded in childhood. Can I just say that is utter bullshit? It's not true.
Call it out, Dr. Northrup.
I am. I'm done. I'm done protecting these people.
Yes.
They are in it to have power over you. They are manipulators. Why do they do it? It works. Yeah. They get what they want. They think people like us are stupid. We're suckers. Yeah, I'll give you an example. A psychopath said this. He killed a young actor who was working as a waiter, and he just killed him, I don't know, in the restaurant. And he said, he was a lousy actor. He wasn't going to go anywhere. I did him a favor.
Oh my gosh.
That's how psychopaths think.
No, I know. I remember back in psych, one-on-one, it always fascinated me.
Well,
the lack of empathy, just the opposite.
They don't have it. And
none.
That's 1 in 25 people. That's 100,000.
1 in 25?
1 in 25.
I had
That's 100,000 of them in New York City alone. And they are at the top of banking, at the top of government, at the top of medicine, at the top of corporations. However, now that's in the seen world. In the unseen world, the field, the morphogenic field, the quantum field, they're not going to win. But in the world as we think we see it, as Sandra Brown says, the world is oddly tilted in their favor. It won't be if enough of us wake up and stop giving those toads narcissistic supply.
Yeah.
And so if you can't recognize them, and sometimes I can't, I will ask a friend of mine, actually Diane, who I've worked with forever. She was my first nurse, and she has radar that's unbelievable. I'll just ask her, and I'll say to her, okay, tell me now, because you're always right, but for years you haven't said anything, and then you'll say to me, I knew it. I said,
right. Later, right? That doesn't help.
I said, that's not going to fly. That's not going to fly with me anymore. I know you're protecting yourself in case you're wrong. Stop doing it. Tell me now. And it's not going to take me 10 years. I've figured it out now, but sometimes I give people the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't. Right. And then when I'm in a little too far, then it's a little harder. It's much easier to just not engage in the first place.
As opposed to have to excavate yourself after you've engaged.
That's right. And by the way, so many people think that, if they're a celebrity, if they're rich and famous, that somehow they're going to elevate you by rubbing up against them. Mm-hmm. You would be wrong. What happens with most celebrities is they want everything for free. They're used to that. They're used to swag bags. They're used to, whatever they get at the Oscars that is like worth God knows what. Don't even go there. It's not worth it.
Right.
It's not worth it. No, if someone's a celebrity, they got to prove to me they're a human first, because I don't give a shit anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what a joy to have this conversation with you. As I said, I have admired you from a distance for a very long time. So when you said yes to this interview, I was back home with my family and we all danced around the house. Yay! Dr.
I love it.
I
love it.
So it is such a joy, and I love to connect with you in the space. We'll be sure to share with our audience about your new book coming out. Right. And your website's drnorthrup.com, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So I'll be sure to share that, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and for sharing. And this was recorded, so I will go ahead and share that with you. And,
and then I'll put it on my put it on my social media too. That'll be great.
Absolutely. So thank you for your time, and may we speak again sometime. I would love that.
Okay. Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Great. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.